In the midst of a rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape, China and Kenya have taken significant steps to enhance their bilateral relations, reflecting a strategic partnership that appears increasingly vital in a turbulent international situation. This development, reported on April 24, 2025, signifies not only the strengthening of ties between the two nations but also highlights China's broader ambitions in Africa as it navigates a complex global environment marked by trade tensions and shifting alliances. During a high-level meeting, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Kenyan President William Ruto reaffirmed their commitment to deepening cooperation in various sectors including infrastructure, trade and technology. President Xi emphasized that the relationship between China and Kenya is not only a partnership but also a model for cooperation in the current global context. This statement underscores China's intent to position itself as a pivotal player in Africa, where it has already invested heavily in infrastructure projects through its Belt and Road Initiative. The backdrop of this enhanced partnership is the ongoing trade war between the United States and China, which has put immense pressure on global commerce and international relations. As Xi strengthens ties with African nations, he is also signaling a shift towards building alliances that could counterbalance U.S. influence, particularly under the administration of President Trump, who has been known for his confrontational stance on trade. Indeed, recent reports suggest that Xi is willing to endure prolonged challenges in the trade war, asserting that there are no talks and the U.S. should move first in addressing the escalated tariffs that have strained relations. This firm stance indicates China's resolve to withstand economic pressures while simultaneously seeking to expand its global footprint through partnerships like the one with Kenya. Moreover, as the U.S. administration faces criticism for its approach to international trade, including tariffs that have alienated some of its European allies, China is actively seeking to strengthen its relationships in other parts of the world. With Europe feeling increasingly marginalized by U.S. policy, Xi has also reached out to European leaders, emphasizing the necessity for dialogue and collaboration amid rising tensions. The implications of these developments are profound. The strengthening of China-Kenya ties could lead to increased Chinese investment in key sectors such as renewable energy technology and transportation infrastructure, thereby accelerating Kenya's economic growth. Furthermore, it may encourage other African nations to explore similar partnerships with China, potentially reshaping the continent's economic landscape. Looking ahead, the evolving dynamics of international trade and relations will likely continue to influence the strategies of both China and the U.S. As countries grapple with the implications of this trade war, the need for strategic alliances will remain critical. Analysts will be watching closely to see how these relationships develop and what impact they may have on the global stage, particularly in regions like Africa that are increasingly becoming focal points in international diplomacy. As tensions mount between China and the United States, the stakes have never been higher. With President Donald Trump enforcing unprecedented tariffs of 145% on a range of Chinese goods, questions arise not only about the economic implications but also whether this could trigger a military confrontation. In a climate where trade negotiations have historically been fraught, the current situation presents a unique and precarious crossroads for both nations. Many analysts initially expected China to retaliate against the tariffs with traditional economic measures mirroring a tit-for-tat approach. However, Grant Newsham, a commentator on Asian security, posits that Chinese President Xi Jinping might have more aggressive strategies in mind. Xi will let his own people absorb any amount of hardship, Newsham explains, emphasizing that Xi has conditioned the populace to prepare for economic challenges while simultaneously fortifying the country's defenses. This dual approach suggests a long-term strategy focused on resilience rather than immediate capitulation. In response to the tariffs, China has already implemented significant retaliatory measures, including banning exports of crucial rare earth minerals and imposing its own tariffs on American imports reaching as high as 125%. These actions are indicative of a broader narrative warfare strategy, where Beijing seeks to rally domestic support against perceived foreign aggressions. She can't be seen caving into the foreigners, Newsham notes, highlighting the precarious political landscape within China where she's leadership could be threatened by any sign of weakness. Furthermore, Newsham argues that she has been preparing for potential conflict for years, framing the current economic standoff as part of a larger people's war against the United States. The capabilities of the People's Liberation Army (PLA) have reportedly grown, enabling China to assert its military presence both within and beyond its immediate territorial waters. This military readiness raises the specter of a miscalculation where she might consider military action against Taiwan or other regional targets, believing that such a move could catch the U.S. off guard. The implications of this potential military escalation are profound. A sudden shift from trade to military conflict could shift the narrative dramatically, with many in the U.S. likely attributing blame to Trump for escalating tensions. Newsham draws parallels to historical events, suggesting that while the situation may not mirror the prelude to World War II, it shares similarities in terms of rising tensions leading to unpredictable outcomes. A trade war and a potential nuclear war are two different things, he warns, stressing the need for a nuanced understanding of the stakes involved. Economically, the situation remains tenuous for China. While the Chinese economy can endure certain pressures, it heavily relies on exports to generate hard currency and sustain employment for a vast population, many of whom live on meager incomes. The tariffs and the potential for a complete decoupling from the U.S. market could exacerbate internal instability, which she must navigate carefully. As the U.S. and China continue to grapple with these tensions, the question remains, how far will she go to assert China's position on the global stage? The dynamics of this relationship may evolve rapidly, potentially leading to a recalibration of international alliances and economic dependencies. The world is watching closely, as the balance between trade negotiations and military posturing could define the geopolitical landscape for years to come. In conclusion, while tariffs have ignited tensions, they may be merely the spark in a much larger fire. The future will likely see a complex interplay of economic strategies and military readiness. As both nations weigh their options and consider the consequences of their actions in an increasingly polarized world. In a significant turn of events, President Donald Trump's aggressive trade policies, particularly his implementation of steep tariffs on Chinese goods, are facing mounting skepticism and resistance both domestically and internationally. As the administration grapples with the consequences of its economic strategies, the anticipated negotiations with China seem more elusive than ever, leading to a climate of uncertainty that underscores the complexities of global trade dynamics. Recent reports indicate that Trump has acknowledged the impracticality of maintaining the recently announced 145% tariffs on Chinese imports, which were intended as a punitive measure against what the administration perceives as unfair trade practices. Prominent retailers, including executives from Target and Walmart, have warned that such high tariffs could lead to significant price increases and shortages of essential goods, prompting the president to reconsider his hardline stance. No one thinks the current status quo is sustainable, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent admitted privately, highlighting the pressure from both the market and business leaders. Despite these challenges, the White House continues to project confidence. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has characterized Trump's tariff strategies as a tactical maneuver designed to realign global trade in favor of the United States. "Have some patience and you will see," she stated, suggesting that the administration's maximalist approach would eventually yield positive outcomes. However, public sentiment within China is markedly different, as officials dismiss any notion of ongoing tariff negotiations, describing it instead as a time of tactful waiting and observation. China's response to the escalating trade war has been strategically measured. Analysts suggest that Beijing has anticipated Trump's aggressive tactics and has prepared its economy to withstand prolonged tensions. Nicholas Mulder, an economic historian at Cornell University, noted that China's capacity to endure economic hardships is greater than it was during the initial rounds of tariffs in 2017, with officials now more adept at navigating the complexities of international trade. This resilience was evident as Chinese leadership refrained from immediate retaliatory measures, choosing instead to wait for the United States to feel the repercussions of its own policies. The stakes are high not just for the U.S. and China but for the global economy at large. Economists warn that the ongoing trade war could precipitate a recession, a scenario that would not only harm American consumers but could destabilize markets worldwide. The specter of economic downturn looms heavily, with many analysts already coining the term Trump slump to describe the potential fallout from his policies. As tensions continue to rise, other nations are closely observing the U.S. trade tactics. With leaders like Vladimir Putin of Russia and Iran's negotiators looking for vulnerabilities in Trump's approach. The implications of this trade war extend beyond mere tariffs. They signal a broader struggle for economic supremacy and influence in a rapidly changing world order. Looking ahead, the path to resolution appears fraught with challenges. Trump's administration may need to recalibrate its expectations and strategies if it hopes to foster productive negotiations with China. As the complexities of modern supply chains and international economic interdependencies become increasingly apparent, the possibility of a diplomatic resolution may hinge on the willingness of both sides to engage in meaningful dialogue. The coming weeks and months will be critical as the global community watches closely how the United States navigates this precarious economic landscape. In a significant move reflecting ongoing efforts to reinforce the relationship between military and civilian sectors. Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for greater unity between the armed forces and the government, as well as the military and the populace. His remarks, conveyed during a national conference on April 23, 2025, underscore the necessity of upholding the leadership of the Communist Party of China (CPC), advancing reform and innovation and enhancing relevant policies and mechanisms. Xi, who also serves as General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee and Chairman of the Central Military Commission, highlighted the mutual support between military and civilian sectors as a fine tradition and a unique political advantage for the party, the military, and the people. During the conference, which honored exemplary cities and counties for their contributions to this mutual support, she urged party committees and governments at all levels to actively care for military development and reform. We must foster a positive social atmosphere that values national defense, supports the military, and honors military personnel, he stated, emphasizing the importance of collaboration to consolidate the unity between civilian and military sectors. Premier Li Qiang echoed Xi's sentiments, stressing the need to resolutely implement the president's directives and to innovate in promoting mutual support. Li called on local governments to establish national defense awareness and adopt a holistic perspective, urging proactive measures to modernize the country's defense capabilities. This initiative comes at a time when the Chinese military is undergoing significant scrutiny and restructuring amidst a backdrop of internal challenges. A recent wave of personnel changes within the People's Liberation Army (PLA) indicates that Xi's control over the military is being tested, with reports suggesting that factions within the military are targeting his allies. This development raises questions about Xi's grip on power and the potential for rival factions to emerge. The political landscape has shifted since the high-profile purges of military leaders, including the former Defense Minister General Li Shangfu, who faced accusations of betrayal and was expelled from the party in mid-2024. The investigation into Li and subsequent dismissals of numerous officers from key positions within the PLA have illustrated the precarious nature of Xi's authority. As personnel reshuffles continue, the potential for rival factions to capitalize on Xi's vulnerabilities grows, complicating the already tense internal dynamics of the CPC. Moreover, Xi's challenges extend beyond the military. Issues surrounding personnel shifts within the broader state apparatus have also surfaced, with significant figures including Li Ganjie being reassigned in ways that could diminish Xi's influence over critical decision-making processes. These changes suggest a potential fracturing of Xi's previously consolidated power, even as he remains poised to lead the party into its 21st National Congress, likely in late 2027. As Xi navigates these turbulent waters, the next 2 years will be crucial. The balance of power within the CPC and the military may shift further, potentially allowing various stakeholders to assert greater influence over the party's direction and its policies. Observers will be closely monitoring these developments, particularly as they pertain to national defense and the delicate interplay between military and civilian interests in China. In conclusion, while Xi Jinping's call for unity between armed forces and civilian sectors aims to strengthen national cohesion, the internal challenges he faces highlight a complex web of political maneuvering. As the 21st Party Congress approaches, the implications of these dynamics will not only affect Xi's leadership but also shape the future of the CPC and China's geopolitical stance in an increasingly competitive global landscape. In a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape, the strategic dynamics of Southeast Asia are undergoing a profound shift as China intensifies its influence while the United States appears to be stepping back. This transformation was starkly illustrated by Chinese President Xi Jinping's recent diplomatic tour across Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia, which has been characterized as a strategic declaration rather than a mere charm offensive. As the U.S. grapples with internal political turmoil and a retreat from multilateral engagement, China is seizing the moment to assert its leadership with a series of ambitious infrastructure promises, trade incentives, and a vision for regional integration. During Xi's visit, a remarkable 45 cooperation agreements were signed with Vietnam alone, covering diverse areas such as artificial intelligence, maritime security, railway connectivity, and agricultural trade. This flurry of activity underscores China's commitment to not only compete for influence but to consolidate its position as a key partner in Southeast Asia. Beijing is no longer content to compete. It is consolidating, noted a political analyst, emphasizing the strategic redirection underway in the region. In contrast, the U.S. has seen a reduction in its engagement with significant cuts to USAID funding and a withdrawal from critical dialogues, leaving an apparent vacuum that China is eager to fill. Xi's engagements signal more than just economic cooperation. They reflect a shifting narrative in the region where local governments are increasingly seeking stability and investment amid global uncertainties. In Malaysia, for instance, Xi's discussions included accelerated negotiations for the China-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement 3.0, aiming to position it as a counterbalance to the U.S.-backed Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which has yet to deliver tangible outcomes. In Cambodia, China is making substantial investments in infrastructure, including upgrades at the Ream Naval Base, further entrenching its foothold. The implications of these developments extend beyond trade agreements. The geopolitical landscape is evolving as countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia reassess their alliances amidst the backdrop of U.S. tariffs and economic pressures. Xi's phrase "Asian family" resonated throughout his diplomatic engagements, promoting a narrative of regional solidarity against Western-led decoupling initiatives. The figures speak volumes. Vietnam's exports to the U.S. accounted for 34% of its total exports, while similar dependencies exist for Malaysia and Cambodia. As these nations navigate their economic futures, the allure of China's investment and consistency becomes increasingly attractive. The story does not end in Southeast Asia. China's recent establishment of a comprehensive strategic partnership with Azerbaijan signals its intent to expand its influence beyond Asia. Following Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev's visit to Beijing, the agreement includes collaboration in politics, economics, and security, with key provisions aimed at enhancing trade and cultural exchanges. Notably, both nations agreed to abolish visa requirements, facilitating travel and promoting a deeper cultural understanding. In the context of these shifts, the U.S. finds itself grappling with the repercussions of its foreign policy under the Trump administration, particularly as Ambassador Fu Song criticized U.S. tariffs in a recent UN Security Council session. Fu's remarks reflect a broader strategy by Beijing to leverage global discontent with U.S. policies to rally support for its vision of multilateralism and cooperation. As the Great Game in Southeast Asia unfolds, it is clear that the dynamics of influence are in flux. The U.S., once a dominant force in the region, risks ceding ground to China unless it can revitalize its diplomatic engagement and restore its role as a partner of choice. The narrative is shifting from abstract power struggles to tangible investments and commitments where the ability to show up and deliver matters more than ever. Looking ahead, the actions of both superpowers will likely shape the geopolitical landscape of Southeast Asia, with far-reaching implications for global trade and international relations as nations seek reliable partners in an increasingly multipolar world.